the Los Angeles Times and The Envelope, I'm Mark Olsen.
I'm Amy Kaufman.
Thank you all for being here today. Viola, I'm going to ask the first question for you.
I knew it. I don't know why I knew it. Put me back
This seems right. This seems right.
Oh my God.
Well, I want to say, as you've been talking about your movie Widows,
Yes.
you've been doing it with such confidence and joy. It's just exciting to watch you talk about the movie.
And joy. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, do you feel like there was a moment where you sort of turned a corner, where you feel like you came into yourself in a way?
You don't come into yourself just overnight. It's gradual things that happen, that you sort of fail, you get back up, you hit another wall, you fail again, you have a moment of success. I would say that I have to say that I really came into myself with How to Get Away with Murder. Only because it was a character that had all of the adjectives that were never associated with me as an actress. And not just because I was African American and dark skinned, because it just wasn't my type. Anytime someone said attractive, if it were in the breakdown, I didn't get that role. So when the character was described as sexual and possibly sociopathic, I was like, not me. So then I had to create her. And, you know, I've been saying this whole saying, courage is just fear said with prayers. Is that a huge part of doing what we do, you have to have a great deal of courage. But especially when a character is not associated with how people see you or even your type. Not a lot of black women on TV leading the show. So I really had to come into myself. I really had to take chances, you know. And I was close to 50 and, you know, had a daughter. But I still feel like I'm coming into myself. Because now I'm at a point where I sort of am losing some passion because this can kind of do it to you. You know, you're feeding two monsters. You're feeding the actor and you're feeding this. And the feeding this can take away from the actor. It really can. It's really messed up, you know. I'm not complaining. I'm grateful, but it's messed up. So now I'm trying to find my passion again on another level, or should I say my significance. So I'm ever evolving.
What is that process like when you say, you know, finding your passion? How do you go about that?
I don't know if you have some clues, but what I think is you need a challenge. You do. And I created a production company out of necessity. Because if I literally waited for Hollywood, I would still be mama. I really would. And no offense to Hollywood or whatever, or the culture, but I very much would be mama. But because of the production company and because of my imagination, I can find those emerging artists like, you know, John Doe. John Doe, who's out there somewhere floating around, is writing for someone like me. Because he's not in Hollywood. He's somewhere out there. So I'm finding those writers and finding those stories that include me in roles that are not just didactic. You know, I always say I want my Clute, I want my Alice Doesn't Live Here, I want my Kramer versus Kramer, I want my unmarried woman, I want to be that black girl in the movie that is just a paradox, a whirling dervish, you know, so that's how I hope to find my passion again. And you know what, sometimes you find your passion not through work, through just life, through just being in life, just my daughter, you know, who challenges me every day. She just told me today, Mommy, sometimes people pick at you so much, it's like an apple tree. They pick at the leaves, they pick at the apple, they pick at the bark, they pick at the grass that holds the tree up until there's nothing left, Mommy. You know, anything that wakes you up, you know, but yeah.
It's the most insightful child thing to say ever.
Yeah, it is. I'm hoping that pays off when she's a teenager. But
Melissa, do you find that as you move forward in your career that is difficult to sort of hold on to the things that got you doing this in the first place, just to maintain the sort of like the passion and the drive that you had when you were starting?
I think it helps to just know, like Viola said, they're just two drastically different beasts that have nothing to do with the other. And the one, the actual, I'm a doer. I'm supposed to be in action, so all my concentration goes into the character, and I tend to fall in love with them, and then that's really when I can have tunnel vision. And the rest I know is part of the job, but I never want those two to overlap. I know also that like one has nothing to do with the other. Like I think of my characters as closer to me than like I always say this is like fake me. This is the farthest character I do from myself, which I don't know if that seems crazy, but yeah, I feel more tethered to doing different characters than when I'm doing maybe something like this. And I think it's also picking stuff that drives you as opposed to what might be a good decision or like meaning in a business decision or this should do well. I'm like, maybe I'll be done in a year working, but it's like I pick off of what hits me in the gut.
And Nicole, as you've become more involved in producing projects and really getting creatively involved in what you're doing, is that the inspiration for that? Like, what is it that has you sort of taking over in those more creative roles?
That was more born out of frustration. First thing I produced was a tiny film called Rabbit Hole, and I just wasn't getting offered anything that was of any substance. I'd had a baby and moved to Nashville, and I think people thought I was just kind of, there's a trajectory that you can head down. And so I read a review of the play in the New York Times, sorry. And you know, reached out to David Lindsay Abaire and said, would there be any chance of optioning this for a film? So that's how it initially started, and then there was more frustration after that because then Reese and I were kind of in the same boat, and that's how Big Little Lies came to fruition. And really the only template for that at the time was Top of the Lake. There'd been True Detective, but that was men. And then there was Top of the Lake, which was Elizabeth Moss, but there hadn't really been one in America that was a limited series like that. So we were like, gosh, maybe we can get this going, get this fired up. And we pitched it around town and got offers, and before you know it, we were off and running.
And
it feels very good when that happens, because you go, oh, I can actually do something that kind of puts me in a little bit of control of my destiny, which I think a lot of us as actors, we don't have control of our destiny so much, because as much as we're wanting to, you know, have roles and opportunities, really a lot of times you're only what you audition for and get, or what you get offered. And most people don't get the choice of how to construct a career.
And do you feel like it's re-inspired you in your acting?
I've just loved acting since I was a kid. I've loved acting. Do I love producing? I find it very stressful because I take things really personally. Everyone says in this industry, it's a business. No, for me, it's totally personal. I take everything personally. And it is that. I love acting. That's what I love. And it's why probably people say, well, you ever direct? And I just feel like I don't have, maybe I have one story in me, but I don't have that. I have the absolute desire to act till I'm an old lady. And I've tried to not. Amy, I'm now passing the baton to you.
I will say, though, in producing, I think I prefer producing. And not just the creating it, but the like day-to-day. I love being on set and being a part of the solution and having people hear me. That was a new thing for me. We've worked with the same director, and in order to be a part of the tone that gets to be set on set, because I really believe you don't have to have a bad time to make a great project. Oh my God. And so that's something that's really important to me. And so just getting to change, whether it's working on scheduling or, hey, can we book in a half-hour time to rehearse the dinner scene so we can shoot it in 2 hours instead of 6 hours, you know, if we, you know, and people going, okay, all right, you know, and as an actress, I found that whether or not people would hear me, I didn't trust my own voice. I felt like that wasn't my place to make a suggestion that would improve the day. Whereas as a producer, I had no trouble and I really loved it. And now I'm sure going back to just being what they call, which I hate, is an actor for hire. I'm like, well, aren't we all an actor for hire? Like feeling like I'm never gonna be, nobody puts baby in the corner. Like I'm like, a beast has been unleashed. I'm like, this schedule is never gonna work today. If you put this here and this here and people are like,
go back.
I can't go back.
No. It's a good thing,
But it's a good thing. I've definitely unleashed the Kraken, and sorry, it's the Clash of the Titans. And I really love it. Whereas acting, I feel so vulnerable as an actress that I don't know that I love it. Like I love it when I'm doing it, and then even after the scene's done, I feel like I've lost something, and it's hard to get it back.
Do you feel like that even when you're playing a real life subject like, you know, Lynn Chaney, when she's
Sure.
like a different person decidedly from you, you know who she is, you can research her?
Yes, I mean, I think the investment, it's not just about the character that you play, it's the investment of time, it's the investment of self, it's that letting go of control, which is so hard to then get back once you've let go of control inside of a role. It's really hard for me to get that back. So then I end up being controlling about little things like water. You know, I've counted the waters and it appears, you know. I become such a mom everywhere I go now. But anyway, yeah, so for me, it really is, some roles take more, some sets take more. But I feel like, for me, if I'm doing it right, I've lost something essential to me when I leave, and I have to take the time to rebuild that and figure out how to get that back.
Lupita, I'd read where you and Denai Guerrero, that you met on set of making a project, and now you have projects that you're working on together. And is that exciting for you, that like one thing leads to another, and that the kind of relationships you might make on making a film or something that you can take on to the next project?
We actually met at an award ceremony back in like 2000 and I want to say 7 or something like that. And I was fangirling over her. She'd done the film The Visitor. And, you know, I didn't know of very many African women in Hollywood. And here she was from Zimbabwe and just killing it in this movie. And I was just like, oh my God, you're amazing. And then I found out she was a playwright, and that was dazzling to me as well. And we connected there. And then I went off to drama school and all that, and ended up doing her play on Broadway. And so Black Panther was the first time that we worked as actors together. But we'd built this relationship, and obviously I trust her as an artist, things she wants to say. We're attracted to the same kinds of things. So on Black Panther, to have that chance to work with her as an actor and was really rewarding. And we had a unique story to tell, but also the stakes were really high. You know, the first predominantly Black superhero cinematic experience was in our hands. And Ryan, he says, you know, he was obviously extremely nervous, having only done 2 films. This was a much bigger budget than anything he'd ever had. So the stakes were high. So to have someone like Denai on board, we were able to, like, you know, link up and really battle for things that were important for the female characters, and Ryan welcomed us to do that. That's why he wanted us to be on the project, you know, to really do something special and meaningful, impactful with the female characters, so that they're not relegated to just being the sprinkling, the spice of an otherwise very male-driven story.
You could tell that Black Panther was something special, and that it meant something to all of you who were making it, even when you were in production. I mean, did that seem unusual, to have a project that had that much importance and that meant so much to all of you right from the start?
I don't know how to work from a place other than for it to feel vital. And I personally choose stories that I feel have to exist. You know, just a hunger, an appetite for the story, because you're spending a whole lot of time working on it. So to have that kind of conviction, that kind of like, oh, this needs to happen and this needs to happen right, and then for it to be shared, that was definitely very moving. And it was a vibration, like you could feel the vibration, because this was important to every single person. Yes. We haven't seen this kind of story before. You know, this kind of opportunity on this scale had not been granted to any of us before. I find that with stories about Black people, very rarely are they allowed to be imaginative, you know, and just otherworldly. So to have that opportunity for fantasy on such a great scale, but that has such social political meaning, I mean, it was like we signed up. We were we were members of that army, and we were ready to fight for it, you know? You could feel it on set, even with the extras. I mean, I remember when we were shooting the big coronation of the king, we were on these very precarious cliffs, and we had to be tethered to them in order for us not to fall and whatnot. And the conditions were harsh. The sun was really strong, and there was water in front of us, so we couldn't leave at our will. And so it meant long hours of just standing there. And for those of us who were main cast, I mean, we had to be there, but extras have the opportunity of like not coming back, but they came back every single day. They were so committed to that experience because they just never had that opportunity before.
Black Panther had such a cultural impact, and so many people who had not seen themselves reflected on screen before saw themselves in that movie. How conscious are all of you about sort of reflecting your own backgrounds and experiences in the roles you take? I mean, even in Mary, Queen of Scots, she's a really feminist queen. Is that something you thought about a lot, Saoirse?
Initially, no. I mean, I think in essence that was there. I didn't sort of sign up to it and think of that, but ultimately that was the reason why I wanted to do it. But I think, you know, speaking of like backgrounds and your roots being a part of what you do, I think the reason why I was so excited to take it on when it came to me when I was like 18 years ago was that it was a Celtic queen, and there's never been a film about a Celtic queen. There's been lots of movies about like the English monarchy and Russian and French and things like that, but Ireland and Scotland share a similarity in that they're both nations that have fighters, and they're very tough. And to be able to play someone who was the figurehead for that and that fight for so long really excited me. And so much of their history just mirrors Irish history as well, and that sort of like struggle for independence and autonomy and stuff. And so in that way it did become very personal to me, yeah. Yeah.
And Marina, you're a very well-established theater actress in Mexico, but with Roma, it's kind of introduced you to a whole new audience, and the movie has had such a life on the international festival circuit. What has it been like for you to sort of meet this whole new audience, and would you like to have a sort of international film career now?
Well, I'm coping with it every day by day. I mean, right now I'm like really overwhelmed to be here and talking to all these amazing actresses. It's been incredible. I knew it was going to be something beautiful, but I never thought that it would be like the way they've been receiving the film. I mean, it's in Spanish, it's in black and white, it's really local, it's really like about Mexico. And suddenly I feel like everybody is talking about the way they can relate to it. So I'm just enjoying it day by day. I don't know what's gonna come next. Right now, I'm just grateful of being here.
Well, in the same way Lupita was talking about what it meant to be making Black Panther, I would think with Roma, it's such a personal story for the director Alfonso Cuarón. What did that do for the production? I mean, you're playing a character that is, in essence, his mother, and I don't know what that did for you in your performance.
Well, I think this is the most personal project I've ever had. I mean, it's the most personal for Alfonso, and that suddenly started to touch everybody else. I always work with my personal life with my characters. Sometimes you magnify things or you transform them, but it's always about something that's within me. But in this case, it was absolutely that. I mean, even if it's based upon his mother, it ended up being all about me and about my own mother. And I think that Alfonso spent a lot of time searching for the actors that were going to play the characters. He wanted them to really feel like the real life characters, but then he didn't show us pictures or anything. I mean, he trusted that we will flow into that, and this particular character it really came from within me and from my memories.
Nicole, when I'm thinking about people who get really close to the people they're playing and the roles, I mean, last time you were here for Lion, I remember you getting so close to the real life woman you played in that. And I saw you in Toronto with the woman from Boy Erased.
Yeah.
I feel like you really love getting to know the subjects you play.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've only played real people a couple of times, so there's something where you're asking them to give you their life, and they're allowing you to condense their life and interpret it, and they're putting an enormous amount of trust into you. So I feel a responsibility, but I also feel like I want to take care of them, particularly, say, in Boy Erased, because Martha's exposed parts of her and her husband and her son that are going to be up for scrutiny, that the world is going to make judgments on. And everything she did out of love, but she made a huge mistake and she hurt her son, and that's a big burden for a mother to carry. So to then allow the film to be even made and to allow me to play her and to not sort of be watching over me the whole time. She showered me with affection and love. I feel like I want to take care of her and I want her to be protected in the world as well.
Right.
So I feel enormous protection of them all, actually.
That's a big responsibility.
Yeah, and I always say this about her. Part of the reason that story's been told is that she's making amends in a way to her son. She's trying to, by taking this film and saying, you can show our family and you can expose it, it's my way of still an apology to you. And I'm now out there, and she's out there promoting the film so that people will see it, because both she and Garrett are incredibly determined that this film will help change, obviously, conversion therapy.
How is that different when, with the character you play, she's not still alive today, and, the Chaney family, I don't know if they cooperated with Vice. Like, how do you deal with that?
This is really the first time I'm playing someone real. I've done it in a sketch thing, but there's an added pressure that I feel completely responsible to. I play Lee as real, and I want to do right by her. I don't want to make it sentimental. I know she would hate that. And so you do feel this added thing, and there wasn't a lot to go on from her, because I think true to her form, she didn't want people in her business. She also didn't live in a time, people needed to document, and they weren't obsessed with showing their lives. Lee was not showing pictures and going, what do you think of my vacation? Or look at me standing in line at Starbucks. There was none of that. So you just had to go off of stories and personal people, but you want to tell their story right.
Amy, what did you do with portraying Lynn Chaney in Vice? Like the
I did
movie...
not meet Lynn Chaney. I wanted to, because whatever, my perspective is, or my leanings politically, I want to respect the person that I'm playing. So I wanted to meet them, but we were advised not to for legal reasons, because we didn't have something. Once I knew that, I did a lot of research online. She's actually amazingly prolific, and she has a doctorate, and she wrote 29 books, wrote or co-wrote over 29 books. There was so much about her that I never knew. Going in, I really only knew that Eminem didn't like her very much and put it in a song. I was like, oh, that's Lynn Chaney. That's who Miss Chaney is in that song. Okay. But I really didn't know a lot. So it was a real eye-opening experience to learn about her and learn about how intelligent she was, how close she and Dick were, and how much she motivated him towards his political leanings. And it was an interesting journey, but I did not meet her, and I'll be curious when that day comes.
An actor has a hell of a responsibility.
Yeah.
I always think, what does it mean to create a character or a narrative that people can be proud of? Other women can be proud of. The person can be proud of. I'm always confused by that. Only because there are parts of ourselves that are so freaking putrid. I know I've met people in my life where I'm like, do you know you yell a lot? It's like, no, I don't yell a lot. We have a nostalgic approach to how we view ourselves. And a huge part of what you do as an actor, you have to be an observer and you have to be a thief. You have to get inside that person, understand what makes them tick. And so you're playing a real life person, so how much do you do that? If you're trying to please a person and there are some certain things about themselves that they want to keep hidden, but you see it of value as an actress, do you use it?
Yes.
We have the only collaborative art form. It's the only collaborative art form. You can't be an actor in your room.
I've done it a couple times.
Listen, I do
in the
too.
mirror.
And I do it great, by the way. I always succeed. But you can't be an actor in the room. You need the writer, you need the director, but finally you need the audience. And, the big thing with acting is, especially when you're in acting school, is to be uncomfortable. That when you're trying to reach that level of comfort is when you're not doing it right. You got to take risks. You got to, put yourself, you got to be in the moment. So I feel the same way about the audience. If I'm always doing something for your comfort, then I'm not being an actor, and you know what? You're not being a very good audience member. I always think of this movie. It's one of my favorite movies, Cooley High, and it's a very, very brief scene where the kid comes home and he's really messed up. It's a coming of age story. He's messed up in school, and his mom is a single mom. She's working 3 jobs. She comes home, she's like, boy, I heard you messed up. I've been working all day. I'm tired of this. And he's like, Mama, I'm sorry. She said, go get that belt. Go get that belt. Go to the room and get that belt. So he's shaking. He goes to get the belt, and he comes out, and she's falling asleep with her coat still on, her bag, and she's just like this, and she's falling asleep. And for me, that says everything. It's very vulnerable. It's, the moment in Clute when she says, the reason why, I'm a prostitute and I don't like men kissing me. You give me the money up front, and, I don't want you loving me. And, just come, I'll service you. You give me the money, and that's it. And then you find out she's been sexually abused. Those moments when you can just take the veil off what makes you so human, those private moments. It's why we do what we do. It's not about image and message and being pretty. It's just not. So I'm always confused. It's like, I don't always want to please my race. And I hope you understand what I mean by that. I don't always want to please them. I want to please them by showing them being honest about who I am, truth.
And also embrace their flaws and their mistakes.
Absolutely.
What you were talking about, that's what makes them human. And
that's what
the thing that they hide, what you said, there's where you have to work with. Yeah.
So the things, the flaws in terms of who we are and why we do things, that connects us then. I think actually you feel less lonely in the world, and people
I think
go,
for sure.
Yes.
Because I think for so many films, you start to see these perfect, I think especially women, you see these perfect women that I don't know. I don't know any. I don't know the pleasant, perfect, always coiffed, perfect job, never says the wrong thing. I don't know her. I don't want to know her. I don't think she exists. But I think you have so many of those, and it's a bit of a disease because you have all these people out there watching saying, is that what my life should be? Should I be perfect? Should I have to loom my own clothes and make organic baby food? And it's like, they've all got crews. There's crews. We can't all do it all. But you don't show it. And then you do play somebody who's aggressive and not great with their kids and blah, blah, blah. And someone's like, oh, she's unlikable. I'm that's why you fall in love with people. You fall in love with their weirdness.
It reminds them of what they're
it hits something
of.
uncomfortable in people, and then they go, and they do the surveys when you screen a movie, and they go, I don't like that part when she did that because it wasn't nice. And I'm like, it wasn't supposed to be nice. It wasn't given to you to make you feel good. It's holding up a mirror to yourself and the audience. I love when I'm like, I
remember when Girls came out, and I was a teenager at the time, and I hadn't had a show that had come out that sort of made me go, oh, it's all right to feel that way, and it's all right to have those weird thoughts that I have, and it's okay to think in this way about my body or relationships or sex or friends, or to feel like a horrible person sometimes. And I hadn't really felt spoken to in that way until I watched that show. Something about as well, because the power of film is incredible, but something about seeing it on TV, it's such an accessible thing. And it felt like such a revelation, And it made me really excited to see what was going to happen next,
Well, you've always also seemed excited to portray yourself that way. When you were in Lady Bird, you said, you wanted to be a teenager who had acne, and you just were like, this is how I am.
I had acne at the time, and so I was working. I had also grown up playing characters that just didn't wear makeup and were usually tomboys, and there was never a role I played that was described as pretty, because I wouldn't have been seen in that way. And in hindsight now, I'm glad that that's the way it sort of ended up going. But it meant that I was, working on a film with another person who thought it was okay to show someone, an authentic teenager, and we had all of this available to us. We had a very tired 20-something-year-old girl who had bad skin, and I was like, just do whatever, I don't care. And so we did that. But I think it's so important to just be in an environment with people that make you feel safe enough to take those risks, you know. That's why it's so important to be working with wonderful directors like we all are, and the crews that we work with, and the hair and makeup people that we work with that make us feel safe and comfortable every day to go like, okay, I don't need to look my best, or I don't need to be seen in a certain way.
It's so
You've got
funny
that
because out in the
support.
world, I don't ever wear makeup, and I
No.
always look a mess. Like when people are like, "You're so
Always.
brave to look like that in that film," and I was like, "I'm brave every
brave.
morning
Every
at
day,
drop off,
yeah.
and I
I
am the
don't even
bravest
get
person
that.
you
Yeah,
know."
yeah.
I always
get
look
that.
like I always look like I've just wiped food off my jeans. I mean, I do not present well in real life, and so.
But do you find as well that people won't recognize you as much when you don't put makeup on, because they see us so much when we're like this, and I guarantee you none
Not
of us
me.
dress like this when
Not
we're
me. They
on our
recognize
own.
me all the time.
Nobody would recognize you because you look completely different.
No, they recognize me all the time, especially when I just put the rag
Oh,
on
do
my
they?
head
Aw.
and just, because I'm that actress. You know, I'm that actress. So.
But when
So
they called me
funny.
to audition for Roma, it said no makeup, and I was so relaxed because they said, "Oh, I'm not gonna have to look good," or they're not looking for that, you know. They just want to see who I am, and there was no makeup at all in the film, and it was really, I could just like forget about the way I looked. It helped a lot.
They've done those experiments with. I remember seeing a show once back in the UK, and they brought in all these girls that wear like loads and loads and loads of makeup every day, and they looked gorgeous, but it was like their armor, and it was such a terrifying thing, like truly terrifying for them to wipe off that mask. But once they did it, the sort of liberation that they got from it, and the freedom, and just sort of like being able to do whatever they wanted, it was incredible, you know?
Yeah.
I always think actors are looking at this, you know, who are like, oh, how do I become like Nicole Kidman and Lupita and Melissa? I know, but you could get a lot of bad work, like bad writing, bad directors, bad everything in your career. And actually, that's going to be most of your career. You are very fortunate to be able to pick and choose who you're going to work for and just say, you know what, I'm only getting out of bed until that narrative is absolutely right. And so then the choices and how you have to work as an actor when you get the crappiest work imaginable, how you have to problem solve, how you have to make it human when you do have the person saying, can you wear the lashes in this scene? And then you really have to fight for yourself and to fight for your work. And if you're doing that year in and year out, and it just starts chipping away at your artistic life and your creativity, which is not benign, by the way, when you chip away at your creativity. That can cause depression and death. So then what do? How do you problem solve? That's why I always tell actors, if you're in that, you know, realm, you just got to work. You have to find a way of working when you get the crappiest scripts, you know, and then you have people who are. This is the business of mediocrity. It really is. You could have someone who walks right off the street and says, "I'm a writer," you know, and I'm an actor, and those are the people who are going to be directing you. So to find a way of working and creating work that you're going to be proud of is very difficult.
Have you seen Nothing Like a Dame? Have you all seen that? Yeah. The documentary with Judi Dench and Maggie Smith on their own. Having it, it's called Nothing Like a Dame. And they're just having a cup of tea. And the brilliant thing about it is that you're watching these women who have been jobbing actors since they were in their early 20s. Wow. And they're so not precious about what they do. They just go to work. And they're shields. They're just tough women. And they've played terrible parts, and they've played the best parts going, and they've been great in some things, and they've been shocking according to them in other things. But they keep going because they graft, and it's their job, and it's what they do. And it's sort of, there's something as well about not being too precious about it as well. It sort of helps for you to dip in and out of it too, you know?
But Lupita, even after you won an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave, you didn't appear on screen again for a little while. And was that because you weren't getting the kind of roles that you wanted to get? Have you felt like you've had to be selective in the projects that you take on?
For me to have gotten such a groundbreaking role in 12 Years a Slave and that it led to an Academy Award was extremely dizzying. And it was something that I had to grow into. And because there was a lot that came my way really quickly, and I had to make sense of it. What I got told a lot after I won was, this is your moment, seize the day, get in there, it's now, the time is now or never. And that sent me into a little bit of a panic because I hadn't expected it. And you hear of the Oscar curse, oh dear, the supporting actress curse. It was just a lot to take in. And I had to sit down with myself and ask myself, what am I in this for? Did I do this for the accolades or did I do this for the love of the work? And what exactly is my love? Because I did 12 Years a Slave in 2012 and I won in 2014, right? I mean, it took a year to make the film, and then in all that time, I did a small role on the film, but I hadn't worked in a year and a half or something like that. So I had to remind myself why I was doing this. And I came to the realization that I did it because I love acting, like Nicole said. Like, it's the one thing that I always come back to. It's the one thing that I have an insatiable appetite for. And I had to give myself permission to fail. It had to be okay for me to go forward and just do things that be in movies that I love and things that I was interested in. It needed to be okay for me internally to fail and to be unremarkable. As that was happening, of course, I also recognized that the industry was not expecting me, And so there were not tons of projects that were already written with me in mind, So for me, winning that Academy Award would not be, it did not look like it would look like for a Caucasian, a lighter-skinned person, It didn't look, it wouldn't be the same. And that too needed to be okay, because I was on my personal path. And so I decided to do Star Wars because it was also an opportunity for me to reconnect without the pressure of my body on screen. It was a chance to do a different kind of acting. And then I did The Jungle Book 2, and I was truly interested in motion capture, and I was truly interested in voiceover, and those were the things that were the most interesting that were coming my way at that time. And then also just using that opportunity to get projects that I wanted off the ground. So optioning Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's book Americana was something I did, and I started to meet with writers who were thinking of me. So a lot of the stuff that came my way was not ready for production. It was ready for development. And that's what I went and did. And knowing full well that at the end of the day, my ambition is to act, is to expand my sense and my understanding of the human condition and not to receive accolades. That is a brilliant and beautiful bonus, but that's not my drive. And that was what that time was for me.
As you're talking about this moment, I'm thinking about, Melissa, you had a similar experience sort of with being nominated for Bridesmaids, and I feel like everyone was like, she was on Gilmore Girls and all these things for so long, and then it was like, bam, you were in everyone's face and everyone was so excited about you. And now
I
we're...
don't know if everyone was.
I was.
I was. Also, get nominated for comedy is that was the big thing. I think
That was, yeah.
That's what I was so
I
excited
felt like,
about.
was this an accident?
So like coming back, we're here because we expect you guys to be in the awards conversation again. I mean, you're for a totally different role. What have the last few years since that been like for you?
I think you get the same thing. I didn't win, but just to suddenly be at that, it's as if like you're going to burn up into an ember and be gone in a year. It's like, take everything now. I was like, I'm not good enough to take stuff. I mean, I have to like it in some way. I have to love the character. They could be the most hateful, despicable person. I still end up loving them. And I think there's all different types to do. But again, I just don't look at the pressure. I would, I was like, if I never work again, I'll keep doing little plays. I did them for a million years. It's like I can carry folding chairs up flights of stairs again. I don't know. I think you can't look at it for that reason. It's also like, I love working so much. I love it. I love the strange women I get to play that I'm much more fascinated with them than myself. Like, I get to walk around in their shoes and be ruder or smarter or more aggressive or more likable than I am as an actual person. I think that's all you can concentrate is on, like, what is it that drives you? I would do it if I did it in my living room. I did it in my living room for most of my 20s and into my 30s. I was like, come see a play. It's in my living room. Give me $7.
I was in my room. I was in the bedroom.
She was in the bedroom, you were in the living room.
Doing
multiple
scenes
theaters.
from my monologues for actors.
Oh,
Books,
tip of the hat.
the pink one. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nicole,
Working on that.
I want to be sure to ask you something about the movie Destroyer, which your performance in that is so powerful, and the movie itself is so uncompromising. Was that something that was a challenge, like for you, even just the physical transformation that you have in that movie? What is that process like for you? How do you end up with that character and that performance?
I was just talking to you about it. I kind of just was pulled towards it. It wasn't like a choice where I'd done Boy Erased and I just was pulled towards playing Erin Bell, and I read it and I found it emotional. I found this woman who couldn't express anything, had made terrible choices in her life, had the map of that on her body and on her psyche, and was trying desperately to find some sort of salvation before the end, And then I found the idea of trying to save your daughter from a similar path as you. I find that deeply emotional because I think that's I can only speak as a mother, but I'm sure as a parent, the idea of your child making the mistakes you make and going down the same path you have and then ultimately ending up where you are, when your life you feel has been an utter failure, that's devastating. So the one thing she can do is save her daughter. I find that very compelling. But, the character of when we're talking about playing women who are very complicated, and I don't even like using the word unlikable because I love her, but everything she does, people find very confronting and, they make judgments on it, but it's her life. But I do feel that idea of trying to save your daughter is very powerful. I find it incredibly powerful. Like, I get upset now, but I'm in an emotional state. But I was also happy to have the opportunity because I certainly wasn't Karen's first choice, and I kind of had to put my hand up for it. It was written younger. She offered to write it older, and then they said I could play both, the younger and the older, which as an actor is a fantastic thing because a lot of times they'll say, we're going to cast a younger actress to play you younger, which is like, no, I've got to tell the story. This is the life. Let me do it. You must be able to do some tricks and make me look in my early 20s, and then I can go here. And I think that was really, really fun. And also to give Karen Kusama a chance, who'd done Girl Fight, 2 decades ago, and then to go, come on, you can do it, back in the game. And she'd done other films, but she hadn't had the success she started out of the gate with Girl Fight,
And you've made a specific sort of commitment to working with female filmmakers.
Yeah.
What was it that sort of drove you to make that decision and to make it as kind of a public statement?
There's not enough women. I mean, statistically, we don't have enough female directors, so got to go. And actually, it was a conversation with Meryl where we were sitting around a table, not recently, a while back, and we went, the only way to actually change it is to go, I'm in the position to choose the director, and I'm actually choosing a female here. And then it will start to shift statistically. And then it will at least, it's nowhere near even, but it could become maybe 20% of where, really now, isn't it still only 10 or 6 or, come on.
It's crazy.
But I've done some of, my best work with men, so it's not like I'm going never again, but I'm just trying to shift the statistics by when I can.
And so with that, we've got to
She's given us
wrap
the
it up.
There's like an ump over there.
Yeah, right?
I didn't see anything. I've been going like that.
One more thing.
Thank you guys so much for being. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. It was amazing, and we really appreciate it.
And with that, for the Los Angeles Times, I'm Mark Olsen.
I'm Amy Kaufman.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That was awesome, you guys.
Terrific. Thank you so much, everyone.
That was
Same
fast.
time tomorrow.